Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3 Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I am not Lee White, but I am Will Terry, and all three of us are professional illustrators. We've all worked for all the major publishers in the business. Together, we publish somewhere around 75 children's books, and we've all taught illustration at university art schools.
That's right. Each week, we come at you with questions from our listeners, topics of discussion ranging from, how do I get an agent to what should I do with my portfolio? But then some weeks we get to interview interesting, either up and coming or well-established illustrators in the illustration world. And today we get to interview our second interview. This is the first guest we've had on twice, and it's Samantha Cotterill. And if you haven't heard her episode, the previous episode that we did with her before, I think that's kind of like it's not a prerequisite, but you're going to get a lot of background information on her that we don't get into this one. This one's very much about how do you market a book? How do you market a book without social media? And talking a lot about her process for this new latest book that she's done. It's called Look. It is a 3D illustrated book. She does cut out illustrations. But on top of all that, she's just a delightful person to talk to.
Super easy interview. She's very affable and excited about her work. And I mean, like, her work speaks for itself.
Yeah, really does. One thing too, we get into it towards the end, but she's doing a special giveaway just exclusive for podcast listeners. And so if you go to her special website here, let me make sure I got you go to her website, samanthacotterill.com/svslearn.html. And the link to that is going to be in the show notes. But if you go there, you're going to get hit with you have to put in a secret password, and the secret password is SVSLearn. Okay. Once you're in there, you could submit a receipt that you purchased her book, and then she's going to mail you an actual prop, one of her 3D props from the book. So there's an image where she has a bunch of vegetables from one of the spreads in the book. It's like a farmer's market, and she's gonna mail those out to people who bought the book. So that's super cool. I'm gonna be doing that because I want a little vegetable to hang on my wall. The other thing too is she's giving away some handmade journals that she made too, and that's for YouTube comments. So go over to the YouTube channel and comment on the video, and she's going to pick 5 random people from that. So I just wanted to talk about that at the front, so you can do that while you're listening to this if you're not driving a car or going on a jog while you listen to this podcast. And with that, let's get right into it.
It's not first come, first serve on those comments. It's just
thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Journals are randomly picked, and then I think first come, first serve on the vegetables because there's only a limited supply of them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just vegetables. It looks like she has some book props too, but it's up to her. It's her discretion. Yeah. Anyways, let's get into it.
Okay.
Samantha, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me back. I'm really excited.
Yes. So you're the I was going to say you're the first guest that we've had on twice now.
Yeah.
So
very nice. All right.
So that's very something.
That's something.
And I got to say, we reposted your interview that we did. How many years ago was that? Was that 2 years ago or
maybe
or
it was
3 years ago?
Because I was working on this book when we had that interview, and I have to say, because I'm very religious about. I sign almost like a stalker. I mean, every Tuesday, it's like, okay, today's the day that the next one comes out. Because I need it for while I'm working. It makes me feel like I'm part of an artist community. And I was both excited and surprised when I heard my name, but at the same time bummed because I was like, oh man. I was looking forward to the next new episode.
Right.
But I was very honored. I was very honored and excited. So that trumped
That's
it.
Good. Well, and that led us to having you on again because a lot of people who had listened to that repost of it hadn't heard it the first time. Because I guess the podcast had grown or whatever. We gotten, people have cycled through and we got a lot of good feedback and comments from that episode, which led me to having you on again. And we wanted
it's a popular topic.
Right. And so essentially the topic for the last episode, and that's probably good, a prerequisite for this episode is to go listen to Samantha's previous interview if you haven't listened to that yet. But essentially, this is an artist who has a career doing children's books and has zero, I don't want to say zero social media presence because there's other people sharing your work out there, but you yourself do not do social media, do not use social media to market your stuff. Correct?
Right.
Do I have that right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I do use Pinterest, but I don't consider that in the same realm as Instagram, Facebook, all of those other interactive social.
Now, when you say you use Pinterest, you use it for
marketing.
Reference or use it for marketing?
I use it for two things. I will use it for reference for if I'm looking for a particular, if I'm stuck or if I need some ideas, and I'll kind of develop a mood board type of thing, which I think it's a great tool for that. It is also a good tool for marketing. So I will use it to promote a book, and not necessarily, it doesn't have the same engagement like a Instagram and Facebook where you've got people commenting, you've got this whole all these other layers. This is just purely used for marketing. So I really don't see it as the same thing.
How did you, and so that's my big question is, how did you decide to go to Pinterest? What drew you to Pinterest to use it for marketing? And then how do you actually use it for marketing?
Well, I guess, so here's my thoughts, my very, like, here we go. I am always trying to find other ways to attack a problem. I look at social media in terms of Instagram as very saturated, very flooded, and think of it as a place where it's almost impossible to get noticed or seen, or even if you take the time to market and advertise, you're gone in a second. People have already lost you because so many people. So for me, my goal is constantly trying to think outside the box of where are maybe not as many people trying to compete in terms of marketing their books. Are there other places I can go to where I'm not one of a gazillion people that are also trying to promote their book? And I do feel that Pinterest is maybe a place where I see it's being used that way, but not at the level that you probably see it in other areas. And so I have found an ability to reach a lot of people that way, especially because with Pinterest you can really target certain, if you find certain age groups, certain like teachers and professions that are more likely to be people that will be buying your book. I can target directly those potential buyers, and I have had really good luck with that. It's been a really great tool for marketing for me. So
that's amazing. So are you, and my question is then, are you doing paid advertising, or are you just posting stuff on?
No, I'll do paid advertising because I'm not someone that, even within Pinterest, I'm not posting all the time and continuously. It will just be specific to a particular campaign or product when a book is launching. So, oh gosh, I don't know. Those are other people's things that they've put on there. So,
well, I just did
mine? Yeah, I have just my book stuff. Is that
and if you're just listening, I'm sharing Pinterest. I typed in Samantha Cotterill as the search bar, and this is what came.
I forgot you have ad blocker on there. That's right. That's why you have all those. I forgot. I remember you said that you did that. So you would never see my ads because you blocked me.
So if I turn off the ads, am I going to see your ads on here or other people's ads? That's a good question.
I don't know, but you won't be getting mine because you. Thanks for the support.
Yeah, I appreciate. Yeah, but I mean, look at this. This is something posted not by you. This is someone else posting a picture that you did. And
yeah. So I mean, for the marketing of the book itself, so I do need to reach buyers, and I have found that I do need to do some paid promotion. It's just otherwise, it's really hard to get. It really is hard to get noticed, and especially if you're not posting as often as I am. Pinterest is really just for those isolated moments. What I've done for the lookbook is I'm always just trying different things. I never know what's going to hit. I never know what's going to bomb, and you kind of have to experiment to figure out what's going to work. I've tried doing an Amazon ad. That didn't really do anything. I think you have to really put in a lot of resources to be able to get a reward for that. I've tried Goodreads. I did do a Goodreads book giveaway campaign. I think it was pretty affordable considering in comparison to other avenues. And it's still running. I think it has another week to go, where I'm basically offering 5 free copies once the book comes out. And what I've noticed is when people enter this giveaway on Goodreads, a lot of times they're putting that book on their to-read shelf. And by putting their book on their to-read shelf, then other readers are seeing this to-be-read shelf, and it's hopefully generating some more buzz and interest. And so right now I have 4,000 people waiting to read Look, which when I'm looking at all my other books that I haven't done anything with, that's a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
And then for the Pinterest ad, it basically all it was an ad saying there's a Goodreads giveaway here, and it just has a link, and that has, I think so far, had 80,000 reactions to that ad itself. So it's generating some buzz, almost kind of behind the scenes. I'm more of a behind the scenes kind of person. That's about as in your face as I'll get. But it really is marketing. I just see it more as marketing than, I don't know.
How much responsibility do you put on yourself to sell books for your publisher?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I feel like it shouldn't really be all on the author and artist's plate to do the marketing. I do understand that in the publishing world, whatever your imprint your book is going through, you're not the only one that's getting a book that's going out into the world. They're dealing with a lot of books at the same time. So there really is only so much attention that can go to each book that's going out there. I feel my job, so to speak, right now is almost getting a book to that tipping point. I feel like there are ways to kind of hold that book's hand and get it to that point where it then has a life of its own. Once you get to that tipping point, you can back off, and I think you can just kind of let it do its thing. Little Senses, for example, that series, it has done really well. It's mainly due to Dolly Parton. It was in the Imagination Library for 3 seasons, but combined with Dolly Parton and the sales all together, it has sold technically 1.3 million copies.
That's crazy.
And has gotten to a point where it has become a repeated inclusion in a list of great books for neurodiversity, but it's gone to a place now where enough people have engaged with it, incorporated it as a quality, like a necessary tool, or a it's gotten to a place where it has its own life now, and I don't know how much I would add. Don't think I would be able to really add anything if I was trying to add promotion. It's doing its thing now.
They sell themselves.
Yeah. So it's just all about asking myself continuously, how do I get to that tipping point? And I do need to put in a little bit of work sometimes to get there.
Right.
That being said, not every book is going to have that tipping point. Not every book is going to be a success, and you can promote till you're blue in the face, and not every project is going to be a successful one. And I think you have to be okay with that as well. It's just part of the journey. You're going to have bombs and you're going to have successes.
So you're, just to be clear, the Little Senses series total has sold over 1 million copies between
1.3.
And it's 4 books in the series?
It's 4 books in the series. And This Beach is Loud is the one that has basically carried the whole series. I remember, Will, a while back in an earlier podcast, you were talking about series and how it can be really risky in the sense that one can be carrying the weight of all the others. You don't know. And it's a bit daunting of, what if one of them bombs? What if one doesn't? So This Beach is Loud has carried the whole series as a whole, but the other 3 have done well. Just This Beach is Loud has done really well.
And with these Little Senses books, are they, is it something a parent would buy for their neurodivergent kid, or is it something a parent would buy to teach their kids about neurodivergent kids? Or is it both?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, it's both. And it was just a project that was really important to me to get out there. And I'm proud of what I did, and I put it out there, and I feel really great about it. And now I was like, okay, that's good. I've done it. And now I can kind of just continue doing all the other projects I do like to do.
Yeah.
That is one thing. So, because the only thing that happened following that series was I did start getting a lot of interest in illustrating for more books that were centered around neurodiversity. And my agent would send me a lot of manuscripts about, this publisher's interested in, and I did get to a point where I had to say to her, I'm really honored, but I don't want to be just that. I don't want my work to just now be all about that. All I do are neurodiversity books. I was really proud of that, and I do think, like a great movie that doesn't need a sequel, I did it. I think it needs to be where it is and be in that place, but I don't want to go into it more. I've done it. So I want to be able to explore and do other things that I really like doing.
Well, that's one of the things that just like, I kind of understand publishing, but at the same time, I don't understand publishing. And it's that the reason those books are successful is, like, you did bring something to the table as far as the illustration and as far as the story and understanding the situation, right? But that doesn't mean that you're that person, right? Like it doesn't mean that you're a one-note creator. And I think in publishers' minds, they think, well, okay, this is the thing, this is successful, this is the thing she does, so we're going to go get the woman who does that thing.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, Lee White had that same problem. He did a book where he illustrated a song for a musician, a country music singer, right? And he illustrated the song, and he brought so much to the story. I think it was This Pretty Planet, right? And everybody, publishing liked it. The publisher liked it. It got good reviews. But then all he was getting was manuscripts for, can you turn this thing into a song, this song into a book? Can you turn this song into a book? And he's like, listen, just because I did it once doesn't mean that's the thing that I do. Yeah. And I think you just have to recognize that artists have so much more to offer than that one narrow success that they may have had.
And my agent was great, because I did say to her, don't even send me, just politely decline on my behalf when you do get these manuscripts in. And it's no offense, it's an honor, and it's no offense at all to the publisher. And I'm actually very honored that they were interested. It's just, that's not what my work wants. I don't want to just be an illustrator that only illustrates books that center around neurodiversity. I want to just create work that I'm interested in general, and it's a lot of different things. And I feel like, out of respect for the Little Senses, I need to leave it there. And then I put my heart and soul into that series. I'm really proud of it. I love it. And I want to keep that energy for Little Senses. And then now I just want to do different things. I mean, that's just how I am. I like to change things up. So.
The direction that you've been going in these last 4 books that you've done with the paper cutouts and building like the dioramas, it's just so cool. Like I don't see any other artist really doing it at the level that you're doing it at. And so could you speak a little bit to like that process and why you are pushed, you feel compelled to go in this direction even further? Because I feel like Look is such a next level step up from Thankful. And really quick, before, I'll let you answer that, but just to give context to people listening, what Sam does is she illustrates these books in a way that they're hand-drawn illustrations, but then they're cut out of pieces of paper. If you're just listening and you haven't looked her up yet, they're cut out pieces of paper, and then she makes these dioramas for each spread in the book. And so it looks almost like those seek and find books that we used to have. Like I don't know if those are still published, but my kids used to read them when we were little, where they'd set up these big old dioramas. You'd look at all the little details and try to find things in them. But
Those
you're doing it
with my kids' favorite books. Those were my son's favorite books. Those ones where she put like incorporated all everyday materials into a scene.
Yeah.
I was blown away. Yeah, that was
right.
I know exactly
it's like, okay, find the rubber ball, find the army guy.
Oh my gosh, those were a huge hit. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're doing like the illustration version of that. So go ahead. What's compelling you to go down this path?
I don't know, because it's a lot of work. Like, I'm constantly asking myself that. I'm just going to say it. It's a lot of work. I do say why.
I look at them and that's the first thing that I thought was, why? I mean, I look at them and I'm like, these are gorgeous. They're unique. And so I kind of know why. But at the same time, I'm like, it's so much more work than just 2D.
It is so much work. But
you get such great natural light, too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. The only answer I can give is that I just can't not do it. That's really it. I want to not be able to do it sometimes because it does take a lot of time. I look at my first books and they're not great, and that's okay. I don't think you should start coming out the bat being an amazing illustrator. You just basically publicly are seeing my growth. My journal is public, so to speak, versus the earlier works, you can see I'm just a little bit rusty, but like Charlotte and the Rock, it's not drawn incredibly well, but there's some life there, and it was drawn in 2 weeks now. And I look back at it and I go, oh my gosh, I drew that book in 2 weeks, and here I am building like here, for example, there's a scene in Look that's a beach side, kind of reminiscent of the seaside in England growing up. And here's a boat from that scene, and I love it. For all the audio listeners out there, there's a beautifully crafted paper boat that's way too big in scale and shows just how much work this one illustration took. Wow. This is just a little boat that's part of this full spread and gives you a sense of how big these sets are and how much time goes into building each object. And oftentimes I will sit there and realize how much time it is taking me to craft this. But I'm just a very tactile person. I've always been a 3D person. Mm-hmm. Anytime I make anything, I'm always compelled to cut it out or build. There's just something about building I cannot get away from. Even when I'm exhausted and frustrated and just want to be able to just get some brushes out and draw, I can't not turn it into a 3D set. So I don't know. It's a complicated relationship. It's a complicated relationship. And I am learning with Look, it was almost easier to create than the current book I'm working on, because there's so much information and detail that, in a way, when you're working in 3D and photography, it's a lot easier to get away with things and hide. And there's benefits to working in 3D versus just putting it all out on one 2D illustration. I can get away with a lot of things that maybe make it more daunting if I were going to translate it to a 2D illustration. The book I'm working on now, I'm really paring things down and editing things down so simply that I'm finding it really challenging, and saying to myself, my gosh, I'm working so incredibly hard to make this look so incredibly easy. And it's really so right. You both have seen some samples in the Dropbox folder I sent you, and it's just, I can't hide behind anything. Every shape, every line, every negative space is there to see. So there's no hiding. There's no putting a tree on one side to hide another section I don't want you to notice. So I'm very exposed, and I'm finding the 3D work even more challenging the more simple I go. If that makes sense.
You know, I've seen other artists do 3D work, and one thing that I think really sets yours apart is that you have really good graphic design skills with your type and space for type. Whereas I see a lot of people where I feel like they're going 3D because they don't have to draw as much, so they're assembling things or sculpting things or making things because they're more comfortable doing that. But then the spreads completely fall apart design wise.
Yeah,
and
it's hard.
Don't. Yeah.
Yeah, because you kind of, when you're setting up the sets, a set can look incredible just out there on the table, but then when you're putting it into the camera and onto it can look completely off and horrible and not work. And I think the one thing going for me, so to speak, was having done 2D illustration book work before the 3D book work. I had practice and had gotten used to how to set up spread design, how to set up enough areas where you can put text and not compete with the imagery to allow the text to pop. I think I needed to have the practice from the 2D illustration work so that I could bring that into the 3D work. And it is 3D until it gets photographed, pulled in, and then it becomes a 2D illustration. So I have to be able to design my sets to allow the 2D aspect to be able to form later on. And a lot of times that means setting up some quick mock sketch dioramas, because oftentimes it has to look completely different on the table in order to look the way it should on the screen. So there's a lot of experimentation and playing around to figure out how to make it work. It's a torturous process.
How about in Thankful, the bookshelves? Did you make all those books?
I did. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I did. I'm a little bit, and it's a combination of my ADHD hyperfocus, where I'll go all in on something, and when I'm going all in, I'm all in. And so it's a combination of that and maybe avoidance of, there's a complicated spread coming up that I don't want to do, so I will find ways to work on this spread as much as possible. And if it means making 2,000 books, I'll make 2,000 books, because in my mind I'm like, well, I'm working on my art right now. I can't do the next one yet because I really need to focus on making these 2,000 books. And
I mean,
for example,
the ADHD is like a superpower and also like a curse too at the same time.
It
right?
totally is. And I think for all the listeners out there, my fellow peeps will completely understand that it is a very, it's an interesting way of working in terms of like motivation wise and when you're cranking. Because I have come to recognize and be aware and understanding of my ebb and flow. I either am in hardcore focus driven mode where I'm like cranking it out and I'm just like, things are going great, or I suddenly crash and then I am completely malaise, exhausted, sitting on the couch, watching Netflix show after show, looking at my studio, thinking, I don't want to go in there. I can't go in there. I can't get started. And I do everything but the book work. I decide that's the time I want to paint over the kitchen. That's the time, I'm Googling pond kits and deciding I need to install a pond in the backyard. But I know that that's the ebb and flow of my brain. But it's more, what happens at that point is it's more about deciding what the cause is of that moment in time where the flow goes from crazy mad motivation to the complete lack of ability to work and exhaustion. And a reflection is needed of, is this due to pure exhaustion itself because I'm just tired and I've been working so hard and need a break? Or is it because I'm avoiding something and I'm scared and I'm fearful? Then I need to address that and find ways to get myself back in working, and so to speak. So
can you get into that a little bit more? Like, how do you do that sort of self auditing? Like, how do you get up off the couch? How do you get back to the work?
Yeah. Well, so there are, like I said, there's times where you're just exhausted because you're exhausted and you've done a lot of work and you need to take a break, and acknowledging that that's okay. If you need to just check out for a little bit, and whether it's going for walks, whether it's just doing something completely different just to get your mind a break, then that's completely fine, and it's probably valuable for yourself, because I think oftentimes we see a deadline coming and we think, oh, but if I could just put 4 more hours in today, then I'm working and I'm getting more stuff done. But I don't know how productive that 4 hours could be. Horrible, and you are really suffering and you just don't have the presence to be able to put good work out there. Rather than if you took 2 hours of that time and you just checked out and you went for walks, you did whatever you need to do to reset and come back, that remaining time you have when you come back into the space is probably going to be way more productive and quality filled than if you technically filled more hours because you felt like that then meant more productivity, because the quantity of time is larger. It doesn't necessarily make for quantity work all the time. Mm-hmm. If I'm fearful, which I can usually tell because there's that little gut voice that's kind of telling you, I don't know how to do this one. Why did I agree to do this illustration? So many other people can do it. I suck. Da, 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 da. That's when I have to say, okay, let's look at this as tiny little chunks. And can you go into that studio for 15 minutes? And there's one little tree on that spread. I think you can draw a tree. And it's usually I'm talking in my head to myself, but it's like, Sam, you can draw this little tree. It's like literally 2 lines. 15 minutes. Go and do that tree. I'm like, all right, fine. I can do the tree. It's 15 minutes? Sure. And then the whole time I'm yelling at my head going, darn it, I can. But so 15 minutes goes by and I'm like, all right, I did this tree. That's fine. Then the brain says, all right, can you do this other little piece? Try another 15 minutes. And so begrudgingly, I'll do that. But then oftentimes what happens is then without realizing it, you're suddenly back into a groove and you're starting to work. Things are starting to click, and you just needed that nudge because you are faced with this overwhelming sense of looking at everything as a finished product and a whole, that it scares you to start. So if you look at it as tiny little chunks, that if you can do one little chunk and do another little chunk, that eventually the chunks add up and all of a sudden you're close to a finished piece. And a lot of it is just that anxiety based.
Right.
Yeah.
That is so powerful because, it's just like climbing a mountain. Like it seems daunting, but all it is one step in front of the other, in front of the next, in front of the next. And, and you keep doing that, you'll get to the top. Right.
Yeah,
That's cool.
and it's just, I mean, it's conversations I have with my college kids, as I'm sure many have out there with their college kids, where they've got a massive, massive project or exam, and then they're so scared that they don't start it till the night before, and then we have many of those conversations. But
Right.
Hey, speaking of your workload, what can you give us an idea? Like, I think a lot of our up and coming illustrators, I know I wondered this when I first started out. When you get your first children's book gig, and maybe you get your second, do they just flow after that? Are you constantly booked up? Do you have books waiting to do right now? How can you speak about your
yeah,
workflow?
I don't know about how you have experienced things, but I do feel there's been a shift in the last few years of more book deals and more more deals are happening based on proposals being submitted versus getting manuscripts emailed to you. I know through my agent, she had mentioned that too. We've noticed a shift in more often book deals are happening because of proposals that are getting pitched and put out versus several years ago it seemed to be more common to get manuscripts and decide.
You're saying more author illustrator pitches, proposals, versus
yeah
authors sending it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that seems to be, I don't, that's my experience. It seems to be happening more than years prior. Right now I have a book that I'm finishing up, but I'm actively not taking on a project after I finish this book. And the reason, and I understand that I have the privilege to be able to do that right now, I have just found myself at a place where I need a little time to reset. I need some time to experiment that has nothing to do with a deadline or a project that's due. And I know that not everybody can do that. I mean, I've been going at this for a long time, and I feel like I finally now am at a place where I can do that. I can take a little sabbatical. We'll see how it goes. But there is definitely a difference when you leave a book deal and you don't have another book deal coming. You either panicked and are freaking out that, oh my God, I don't have another book deal, or when it's of a place of intention and choice to do that, I'm curious to see how that's going to go, because I just need time to just try some different things. Not that everything has its lifespan, but look, I felt like I did the most I could with 3D with Look. I feel like that was my, I took 3D to a level for myself, detail-wise, that pretty much burnt me out quite a bit. And because it was a lot of work. It was fun and engaged, but it was a lot of work. And now I'm doing a much more simplified 3D book, which has its own challenges. But I'm looking forward to just changing things up a bit, too. I know 3D is part of me. I'll always be doing 3D, but I also want to do some other things to feed that again. So I'm just going to take some time off to just kind of play and explore and fail, because I really want to do a lot of failing for a little bit and bring back some humor, because I feel I do love jokes and humor, and there's just an aspect of myself that I kind of want to bring back into work. So I realize I have no idea what the question was, because I just
No, you're doing great. Like,
well, and I don't think you should feel ashamed or sheepish at all to say, hey, I'm in this position where I'm going to take a break and I can afford to do it. Part of this is, people need something aspirational. They need to see that this can be done. And I look at that. I'm actually super jealous of you as well. I wish I could take a break for 6 months or however long to kind of pause and take a look around. And that's definitely a goal for me as well. So I think it's good to be able to share your struggles, but also like your wins as well.
Yeah, I mean, in my sabbatical, so to speak, it's not going to be, well, I'm talking like a month or 2 months. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but I just need to play. That being said, I am also very curious to see how this turns out, because due to my ADHD brain, I do well with deadlines and with so having the complete freedom and flexibility, I'm a little curious if it's going to be a successful adventure.
Yeah, or it might be Netflix the whole time, right?
I don't know. I mean, there are people, like, there are artists that I see that will actively sketch in their sketchbook every day. I'm not one of those people. I don't pick up a sketchbook. And for a long time, I thought that equated to that I wasn't really an artist. Like, I should be somebody that every day is just getting up and just creating for the sake of creating and drawing. And I don't. And a lot of times I'm doing other things. Maybe I'm just spending time observing and just being part of my surroundings and just getting inspiration that way. But I definitely thrive on routine and structure and scheduling. So I might be biting myself in the butt right now by giving myself complete freedom.
I think it's really good to take some time off. I do that. There are months that have gone by where I haven't picked up a pencil, and I don't even pick up a pencil or a stylus, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it's good to have different seasons in your life. So, I mean, I'm looking at one of your spreads, the one with the boat that you just showed, and all the buoys that you made, and all the bricks and rocks and stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, you need time to, if I did this, I would need time to unplug and just go, let my body reset, my mind reset.
I need to reset a little bit, and I need to just get, I just need to do some more quick, impulsive, I need to just kind of get more expressive again a little bit and just free myself up and just to explore and play. I do feel a shift happening, and project-wise, I'm not sure where it's going to go. And I think that's what's exciting, is I just want to play for a little bit. Not for a long time, but just for a little bit to figure some stuff out. Because I think, in a way, in the big picture, it's similar to leaving the studio and going for an hour walk to come back and be more refreshed and have stuff to bring to the table that will make your work even better. I think I need to just get away for a little bit to just explore and play for the reason of future projects and being able to bring something new to the table and just grow. It's just a necessary thing for me. And I think a lot of people do that where they'll set aside a day a week to just be personal work day. Like, I know a lot of people that will have Fridays will be their day where they don't do work and they just do personal work. I just have never been able to do that. I've always wanted to, but I never have been able to succeed at that. So maybe by having a complete intentional block that is purely no deadlines looming over my head, will I be able to have more freedom to explore and play around. And I'm setting myself a deadline, but we'll see. But yes, just to tell you how crazy, and you'll understand, there's a scene for the farmer's market scene. So people that are listening, there's a full spread of a farmer's market that's just chock full of produce.
I'll pull it up.
And yeah, if you come and visit the YouTube channel, you'll be able to see it. So
crazy.
Yeah, okay. So if we're looking at this spread, one might not realize that this encompasses about a 5-foot square table. And if you look, here's where my little hyper focus went a bit alarm level. In the front, you'll see some artichokes. And here's my little artichoke. I will show it to, where's the camera? Here it is. So I painstakingly built each little petal. I mean, these are details that most people won't even see. Here's like the bok choy type thing, and it's all constructed.
I love it though.
I was like, yeah.
So it's just it's taken a lot of time, but what I did enjoy the process, though, the making of each piece. I think there was an element of Zen meditation in the sense that I would just zone in on the making of this one shape or this one item. And something about doing multiples is very soothing to me. I love everything in multiple form. And I think there was just a meditative process with it. And I got carried away and really enjoyed myself. And while the whole book making process was really rewarding, it was tiring. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. But
I have to say, ever since I saw Polly Bernatene's work and read, of course, read No Studio, and in yours, and I have this desire to try this, but I don't know if I'd ever allow myself to go down this rabbit hole. But the lighting is what intrigues me, because you get to play with light. You get to light it however you want, right? And
yeah, I get to play with light, and that's a lot of fun. It can be both torturous and rewarding. I think it's important that you go into each piece open to fail and open to let things go. A lot of times spreads won't go the way I want them to, or the lighting will not look good no matter how much I try, and I get really frustrated. And that's when imposter syndrome sets in, or feeling like, oh, I'm less than, I'm not good enough. And that's where it can really get you. But you have to embrace that in order for it to get to maybe a better place than you even initially thought it could go. You need to allow yourself to just fail at things multiple times and be okay with each time something doesn't work. It is, in a way, one step closer to figuring out what does work. And I just had the worst week this week of some simple spread, and it always starts that way, where you go, this one's gonna be the easy one. And it becomes the worst one. And it's so simple. It is so simple, but I can't figure it out. And I think I'm holding on to one figure that I spent time on, so I feel like I need to incorporate it. And just now, before our meeting, I realized I was probably setting myself up because I'm not allowing this little figure to be the failure part, that it's just not working, and I need to let it go and try again without this part that I was stubbornly determined to fit into the spread. And I think deep down somewhere I knew that it wasn't going to work, but I didn't want to admit it. So I am actually now, after a week of many times going into the bath and many times going on walks thinking I can't do this, now I'm actually excited to get back to it, because I realized that I just needed to look at it from a different angle and know that it was just a necessary failure and a good one. So
Wow.
Well, do you I propose that you answer a few of our listener questions. Are you up for doing something like that?
I am.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Sounds good. So this question comes in from Morgan, and the subject line is the notorious book cover. And for the TLDR for people, it says, Morgan says, do you consider it lazy, cliche, or otherwise poor storytelling to use a book cover or other text as a key part of the gag in an illustration? And then they go on to explain. I started teaching myself to draw about a year ago and found SVS and 3-point perspective very recently. This podcast has made a huge positive impact in my drawing. I have noticed that sometimes other students will post illustrations with a book as part of the composition. This book will typically have a title that cues the observer to a key point in the gag. Generally, the image does not work well without this book. I've run into the same problem when thinking through illustration ideas myself. I don't particularly like the idea of having text on a book as a key point of an illustration, but it seems difficult to get away from in some instances. Is this just a matter of personal preference, or should one goal of the thumbnailing stage be to get away from the book problem? And I think really what they're talking about is, for a book cover, should the illustration just be able to exist on its own without the title without the name of the book? Is that how you interpreted this question?
I took it differently. I thought maybe I'm reading it wrong. I took it as an illustration. If you have an illustration where there's a little book inside the illustration.
That's what I thought. That's
with
what I
a
thought.
title on it that explains what's happening in the illustration. That's
yeah, go for it. Maybe I got it wrong. But yeah, go for it. What do you think? What do you think the solution is here?
Well, let's see. Based on the fact that Jake is totally wrong, I haven't really seen that, so I don't know. Maybe that. So here's my thoughts, I guess. If it is indeed what both Will and I are thinking this is addressing, I think it's a problem if there's a title in the book that's trying to explain what's happening in the illustration. Sure, then that's saying that there's not a well enough designed composition happening that can survive without this book title. Then it means that there's some design elements that could be further enhanced or worked better to get the story to show the way it's supposed to be shown. But if the title adds something to just giving you a little bit more insight into the character, or maybe it gives a little cue into maybe what lies ahead, it could be quite effective. I always go to Wallace and Gromit. I'm a little obsessed with Wallace and Gromit, but I kind of think about those scenes where Gromit is always holding a book title that, like, there was one, what was it, like Engineering for Dogs or Mechanic for Dogs, but it clearly was cueing you into this dog is more than just a dog. Or the fact that Wallace is reading a book all about cheese, and it just adds to the depth of his character. It's not telling you what the illustration's about and explaining it, but it's adding to it. So I think it's a nuanced answer there. Because I love a good little tongue-in-cheek book cover. I think can be great.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, this is very much insider baseball illustration talk here. Like, this is not everybody's doing an illustration with books in their illustration, but I agree with you where it's like the book should be part of the world building. It should be fleshing out the world even more, so that if the illustration works without that little gag in there, but if you read the gag, it just is another little like wink, at the viewer.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just fun. And like I said, in case in point with the film, I think if you go back, it's kind of those things where you replay the film, and now that you've already seen it, then you start to see little clues about what you might have missed in the beginning. So there's areas where it could be a really fun, useful tool. So that's my educated answer for you.
Very good. We're gonna have to make you a regular question answer around
microphone,
here. All right, we have one more question, and this person asked to remain nameless. And when I say the question, you'll understand why. Subject line is agent wants what I don't. So I signed with my agent about 9 months ago. They've been an agent for 30 years, but not in the world of children's book publishing, which they are now getting into. Most of what they contact me about is graphic novels, which I don't really want to do right now. I would like to maybe do them someday, but currently I'd like to focus on picture books. Graphic novels don't pay well. They're a tremendous amount of work. I have no experience with them, and I'm not interested in making them right now. I have told this all to my agent, yet most of what I hear from them about is graphic novels. I feel that I'm not being listened to. Should I look for someone who might better represent me? What would you do in that situation? Have you been in a situation like that?
Well, I mean, I have been in terms of just what we had talked about earlier with getting approached with the neurodiverse side of books. And that was me just proactively saying to my agent, I would like to have other manuscripts. I don't want to just focus on manuscripts that center around neurodiversity, because my library is just way bigger and for now I want to keep it at Little Senses. And there was a respect and an understanding for that. And so I was very clear about that and moving forward. So we did have that understanding. And I guess, I know you did share with me the question. So I did go and look at the website for this illustrator in particular, because I know it's part of this episode. And my thoughts are, this illustrator has a bunch of really great work on there, but I do think it's a little conflicting in that when I look at the work, and I don't know if you felt the same way, but I can see why graphic novel submissions are getting sent to the agent, because a lot of the work that's there lends itself, I think, to more of a graphic novel avenue, whereas if this illustrator is wanting to have more focus on picture book illustration, that I think the website could reflect that a bit more. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's a couple areas on the website that would make me lead to believe that a graphic novel would be an exciting project to propose. So I guess there's a little bit of mixed messaging. I think it's a combination of communicating that with your agent and being very clear about it, but then also demonstrating that with the work you're putting out there and advertising. And I think it's that kind of idea that you put out the work that you want to get, because oftentimes doesn't that happen where you have I'll have all these 3D books and then I'll do one little watercolor test, and then suddenly people are like, could you do this book all in watercolor? And I'll be like, oh, I don't want to do that. I just put it on there because I thought it turned out okay. So I think being really conscious about putting out the work that you want to get, and if you're not wanting to get the graphic novel submissions, maybe tailor your work to entice more of the picture book submissions. But I don't know.
Will, did you I sent you a text with the portfolio on there. You could check that out. But what would your take be on this? Like, if you had an agent that wasn't, I agree with what Sam said. Like, if I were this agent too, I'd be like, this illustrator is perfect for children or for graphic novels. The artwork is there, it's dialed in. But if that's not what you want to do, if there's like this conflict between you and your agent, how do you handle that situation?
So for me, it feels like I've spent my whole career trying to stop doing the things I don't want to do and start doing the things I do want to do, and only do the things I want to do. So it's easy for me to answer, but I'm also in a financial situation where it's easy for me to say, get a new agent, try to find a different agent that'll get you the things that you want. I realize that the reality for a lot of people is that, you're afraid to let go of that agent. That's what I read into it. Like, I think if money were not a problem, this person that we're talking about that asked this question would just divorce that agent and start looking for a new one. So I'm sensing that there's a reason for holding on, because maybe they'll get you the stuff that you want. Probably not. It sounds like if they've got this person pigeonholed for graphic novels, or if that's what all from their website, that's all that's being requested from publishers, then maybe again a new agent is.
I kind of go that same direction, but on the flip side too, to see a children's book in this graphic novel style would actually would stand out on a children's book wall. If you could do, I kind of want to see one of because I can't show this particular illustrator, but imagine really cool Adventure Time kind of style, right? Or like a very contemporary Cartoon Network style that's going on right now. Like Amphibia Land, I forget what the TV show is. My kids were watching it, or DuckTales, the new version of DuckTales or whatever. So imagine that style and thinking that would be perfect for graphic novels, but shoehorning it into like a children's book type of thing. And so what I would want to see from this, if this illustrator really wants to do children's books, take one of your single illustrations that you've done and do 3 or 4 in a series of that. So we have these same 2 characters and they're in a boat going down the river. Now do them climbing up a mountain. Now do them in a bustling city. Just so that it really should, and do like full page spreads, maybe do a little vignette, do the kinds of images you would see in a children's book, but in this style. And now you've got a portfolio that better represents your vision of the kind of work that you want to be doing.
I think that's a great idea. Like just putting out samples of what you would want to do, and combined with open and honest conversation with your agent and saying, I am really not ready for, or right now, I do not want graphic novel submissions that are in this age range or whatever. And this agent might have a response of, I mean, there needs to be an honest conversation had between the 2 of them, because then the agent may say, well, I'm not getting the picture book submissions that I would like to have for you, and then maybe there would be this understanding of parting ways. But I also it's a tough one. It's a nuanced. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
No, and obviously, like this, we're just giving advice, and people can take it, and we're getting 3 different perspectives on this advice. I think the other thing too is you got to remember what your agent needs. Your agent wants to land a deal, and if they think that because the agent wants to get paid too, right? Yeah. And a lot of times there are agents who have so many different clients that as long as they're getting work for a percentage of them, they're able to support their lifestyle. But then there's some agents who take on a very small number of clients, and they're much more interested in having a long-term relationship and growing that illustrator's career, because they know it's a little bit more investment up front, but they know that eventually if they can get that illustrator to doing best-selling books, it's going to pay off bigger for everybody at the end.
Yeah.
And so you got to understand where your agent's from. And if you're wanting an agent to just, hey, I've got another job for you, I've got another job for you, I've got another job for you, and no consideration for a long-term strategy, that might not be the right agent for you. And you might need to be looking for one that does have a little bit more long-term focus. That might not happen until this agent has gotten you a couple of book deals, right? And so you're only into this 9 months, and you've got to have like a decade-long view of your career, like of this phase in your career, and think, where am I going to, what do I need to have happen next year, and in 2 years, and in 5 years, and in 10 years, so that I can be to that place where I want to be. So,
yeah.
So I guess to distill everything here, the idea would be to make artwork that really reflects the vision that you have for the work that you want to make, and then have those hard conversations with your agent.
Yeah. And I do think in the beginning too, let's say you're just starting out and new to this, there is a give and take of when you need to take a job, maybe right away. It's not that you can only take jobs that you want, that you might need to take something that might be a little bit out of your wheelhouse, or it might be a little bit different than what you'd expect, but then you need to take it on, and you can find ways to get what you need to out of that project in order to then eventually get to the spot where you can start producing the work and getting the books that you want that are like, I mean, I've taken a couple books that I didn't think I would have taken if I was in that place of I can just take what I want and do. And it was a bit scary, but in a way, sometimes when I think it's not something I'd want to do, then when I got into it, I realized I grew a lot from it, and I actually learned I liked things that I didn't think I was going to like. So there is part of that balance too, of making the best out of certain things and learning from situations and projects that you might think are kind of not for you right away, but maybe they do become for you once you've been working on it. I don't know.
No, I think that's good. That's good sufficient answer, I think, between the three of us there. Well, should we wrap this up?
I have 2 more questions for Sam, if that's
Too late. We're wrapping it up, Will. We're done.
No, tell me the questions. What are the questions?
Go for it. Go for it, Will.
The first one is, in your wildest dream, what project have you not done that you want to do down the road?
Well, okay, so it's funny because I always say that I would love to do a graphic novel, but I have no attention span. So I think that's one of those grass is greener kind of things of like, I totally would love to do a graphic novel, and I see other people and I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. But realistically, let's just throw that off the table because it's a wanna, but I don't think I would be good at it. Something with animation, I would love to do something animation wise. I'm not sure. If I could be a fly on the wall in like any of those Wallace and Gromit or stop motion, again, no patience, but
right.
I'm picking things that really don't suit me well, but something in animation.
I absolutely see I could see Look being animated, this book here, like this being the art direction for a team of animators to go in and do,
oh my gosh, somebody please do that. I think that would be, please.
That'd be really cool.
What's your second question?
The second one is more specific. Let's say you had 2 boys and they had a favorite board game growing up. What would that game be?
Oh, let's see. I think it's one that you can purchase for 70 cents from Salvation Army because somebody else didn't want it.
No, at the beginning before we started
recording, treasure.
You showed me that when you were restarting your computer, Jake.
Yeah.
And that was just so cool to see that somebody actually had one of my games. So, especially Samantha, like,
right. That's so funny.
Yeah. It was a huge hit in our house. So
longtime fans, Will Terry fans. Did you know it was Will Terry? Like,
no, I didn't know until I was listening to a podcast of yours from a long time ago, and Will had mentioned the board game, and I was drawing. I'm like, get out! No way! And I like quickly ran. I even emailed you, but then I stopped myself because I was like, this is a little stalkery. I'm not going to send.
I wish you had.
But
that's funny.
I ran into the closet, and then I did get a little bit more credibility because I got some credibility from my kids with Jake with Missile Mouse, and then I got a little bit more when I was like, do you know, like, I know the guy, which means I listen to the guy.
Right.
I think if you have kids, we all have that. Like, our kids don't think much of us, of what we do, right? But it's the people that we know, right? So my experience, I've told this before, was Brett Hellquist, Series of Unfortunate Events, illustrator. And I went to school with him, and I invited him over to the house one day, and this was when my kids had just gone through the books and saw the movie and all. And I mentioned it to him that, hey, remember I told you I knew Brett Hellquist? I think they were like, yeah, whatever. And then when he showed up at our house, and I've never seen my boys at that time behave so well in our house. They sat there just looking at him, just staring at him like starstruck, Yeah, and I was like, they don't even respect me. Like, they
but I definitely have noticed it's changing now that my older one is like about 21. It's starting. I'm starting to get a little bit of like, okay,
like,
maybe I get to do some cool stuff.
Mom does cool stuff, actually.
So maybe just gotta wait till they're out of the house and then realizing how good they had it.
I bet they brag about you.
Yeah.
So we'll close with, you're doing a giveaway in relation to this podcast episode and this book. You want to tell us about the giveaway, and I'll share the screen here. Yeah.
Actually, so the book is coming out April 16th, I believe. And then I wanted to do something tied with 3-Point Perspective and SVSLearn. And I did custom design a bunch of journals for you to do your own pattern walks in nature. And I just took the cover off. So it's just basically a journal for you to be able to sketch, do whatever you want in there. Another hyper-focused, distracted moment. But anyway, so I made a bunch of these, and I thought if I gave away 5 of these to listeners for the podcast, and I know, Jake, you had some ideas and stipulations on what kind of comment to leave on the podcast in order to enter to win. I'm going to give 5 of these away randomly from the comments that are left on the episode for the YouTube.
So if you comment on the YouTube video of this, you will get 5 lucky winners will get a handmade journal.
Yeah. And then
from Sam.
Further the game, then in the show link notes, there's going to be a link to a page on my website that's accessed only from having seen this episode. So if you put in the password for the link, if you put in the password SVSLearn when you connect onto the link, you can get a wonderful little piece of art from the lookbook when you pre-order a copy of Look. And basically I have a form set up. It's pretty simple. You just put your name, your address, and you can just upload a really quick photo with details crossed out of the receipt of the Look pre-order, or a screenshot, whatever you want to do. And then come pub day, I'll send you a miniature little piece of art that's from the lookbook, because we all have like that 1-inch spot on our wall that's just dying to be filled with
That's so
a miniature
cool.
piece of art. But I have a lot of vegetables.
I want some bok choy. I want a nice little framed bok choy for my wall.
And so what I'll do is I'll keep that open through till April 15th, just before midnight, basically right before the book debuts. So in summation, to make this all clear, for the podcast, if you comment, you can be entered to win one of 5 custom journals that I will send your way. And I don't know how long we want to keep that one open for. And then in the show link
Let's do that. Let's do the same date. Let's do the same date for everything.
And then for the show link notes, there'll be a link to a special page on my website that's password access only with SVSLearn. And you can enter to win a little miniature piece of art with every pre-order purchase of Look.
It's super simple. I've done this before for another author. I just ordered on Amazon, and then I screen grabbed the receipt that I got. You know, congratulations, you ordered your book or whatever, and I submitted that, and then I got the giveaway from doing that before. So it's super seamless. Don't get scared that you have to like do too many extra steps. It's really easy.
And it'll just be one of these many. Here's a little tray of vegetables, all ready to be adorned in your home. So one of those. And then just for a little fun last, because I brought them out, just to show you how nuts I am, when you get your copy of Look, you will see a half spread on one page of flowers. And I don't know if I had shown that one to you. Let me show you the size of these flowers. Here's
I gotta see this.
Wow.
And here's the
it's
other.
life size.
Let's put that into perspective when we look at
What
Yeah.
page was that on?
Yeah.
What page was that
Which
on?
page is that on? The
I don't. It's on. I probably should.
Or
know
just
the page
describe
number.
the spread.
It's near the
I
beginning.
found it. It's like 7.
Oh, there it is.
Page 7.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah. Let's just leave it there. And then here's
Sounds good.
Here's the bridge. So.
I was
wow.
wondering if you actually. I mean,
Yeah. So I built
Wow.
the sides of the bridge.
wow.
Yeah.
That's so
So-
cool.
You are a hard worker, Samantha.
You should have
Well-
you should have an art show, a gallery show for this too.
I should, but at the same time, like I've said to you before, I really don't like anything once I've finished everything. So I think part of this was also I need to like get rid of a lot of this stuff, because I do better when I don't have the past looking at me in the so.
Right. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was
Yeah.
fun.
Really
Thank you
fun.
Loved
so
it.
much. Thank you. Yeah, it was awesome.
All right, that was Samantha Cotterill. And like I said, it's samanthacotterill.com /SVSLearn.html is the website to go to get your freebie, your free piece of art for pre-ordering the book. And I wanted to add too that like Amazon sales ranks and also just New York Times best-selling sales ranks a lot of times are based off of pre-orders. So if you get a bunch of people to pre-order a book and then the week it comes out, they count all the pre-orders leading up to that plus the sales that week to kind of establish its selling rate. So that's why you could see a lot of books that come out and they debut at top 10 or top 50 on lists, is because they had a bunch of pre-orders. And we want Samantha to really knock it out of the park with this book. So go and pre-order it. It's really cool. Well, we just talked with Samantha for an hour. Do you have any big takeaways from what?
This is something that I've always thought that illustrators should be striving for. And I see it in her work, and that is a dedication to your craft that only you can do, and that is exactly the right amount of work for the look that you're getting. And she mentioned that in there. She talked about doing some characters or some props or things that she realized weren't working and she had to throw away, and it's hard to throw it away. It's so hard for us to throw away work that we've done, but I see her level of dedication. If you know her work, or if you've looked at it before, or if you go look at it now, it's hard. It takes more time to do the style she's doing than to just do a 2D rendering, right? And I think that for her, for other people that do 3D, there's a charm that comes with it, and when it's pulled off and done right, like she does, the lighting is, the whole package is something really quite special. And I think that we all need some sort of uniqueness to offer the world, and I think that she's doing that with her work. And it's really special, and so many of us get caught up in kind of copying what other people are doing, that we just sort of fit in. And in a world where it's noisy, where there's so many people trying to sell their illustrations, you've really got to go the extra mile to do something more. But you've got to have a purpose for doing that too. It's got to, you can't force it. It's got to be something that comes out of you. And I think this style really comes out of her. That's kind of what I took away from it. Yeah.
My other thing too is she struggles just like all of us with motivation, and there's times where you're super inspired and the work is easy and you just get in there and you're grinding away at it, and then there's other times where you can't get off the couch. And I really liked what she said, and I drilled into that a little bit more. How do you get off the couch, get back in the studio? And the thing she said was, I could do one tree. I can go in there for 15 minutes. If I can do just 15 minutes is not hard. It'll be over, and I'll just draw one tree. And oftentimes you get in there and you start drawing and you're like, I got this. I'm in the groove now. And so it's like a lot of people think you need to wait to create. You need to wait to be inspired in order to create. And more often than not, it's you go and create and then you get inspired.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, I'll take us out here. 3-Point Perspective is brought to you by SVSLearn.com, where becoming a great illustrator starts. And your hosts are Will Terry, Lee White, and Jake Parker. Again, Lee White couldn't join us today. He is on assignment. Actually, he's still on spring break. Let's be honest.
He's probably on a slope somewhere.
Yeah, that's what's going on there. But he will be back next week for sure. I just want to thank everybody who helps make this podcast possible. It's produced by Daniel Tu. That's Daniel TU. Special thanks to our keeper of the curriculum, Austin Shirtliff, our show notes wrangler, Lily Howell, our chief operations officer, Lisa Fott, and our in-house illustrator, Annalise Black, who does illustrations for all these podcast episodes that we do, and she does a great job. I think that's it for today. Now, go draw something.